In the heart of the dense forest of Africa, there was a small village called Akamba. This village, with its mud huts and thatched roofs, among tall trees and flowing rivers, seemed like a shelter for its residents. In one of these small huts, a family was waiting for the birth of their first child. Kyobi, a strong and tall man with a strawberry face and kind eyes, and his wife Naomi, a woman with a delicate body and a pleasant face, were counting the minutes for the arrival of a little girl named Ada, while anxiety and excitement surged in their eyes. At night, in the midst of the whispering of the wind and the sound of forest crickets, Naomi let out a loud cry. Concerned, Kyobi held his wife's hand and encouraged her to be strong. The old midwife, who had a lot of experience in delivering babies, was working carefully. Moments passed slowly. Suddenly, the sound of a baby crying broke the silence of the night. Kyobi's heart skipped a beat. The daughter was born. Old man gently wrapped the baby in a colorful and traditional cloth, placed him in Naomi's hand. With a deep smile and prairie eyes, Kyobi leaned toward his wife and child. The little baby with black hair and closed eyes was sleeping peacefully in his mother's arms. Years passed, and Ada becomes a lovely little girl. Like any other child in the village, he wanted to play and meet his new friends. But the villagers looked at Ada differently. Unlike other children, she was both a girl and had characteristics that made people gossip about her. Also, his appearance was like other children in the village. When someone approached him, stared at him with a strange look. Ada was often alone. While the other children were playing and laughing with each other, he once sat under a big tree at the edge of the wilderness and watched them from afar. One day, when Ada was playing with small pebbles by the river, a group of children approached her. One of the boys said in contemptuous tone, "Why don't you have any friends? You are strange." Ada slowly lowered her head and said nothing. They were afraid of her, not because of what she had done, but because of what they did not understand. The older Ada grew, the more curious and anxious the villagers were about her. She had never had anyone, but the elders of the village were worried that his presence would cause some kind of misfortune or trouble for the village. In a cold and dark night, the elders of the village held a meeting. "She can stay here." This was the sentence of Mloki, the chief of the elders, said with a decisive voice. The villagers had gathered and were listening to their conversation. Kyobi and Naomi stood beside two others with sad faces. "We can't allow this to continue," Loki said, pointing to Ada. He was stood in the middle of the ring with eyes full of fear and worry. "She is different, and we don't know what these differences mean." A murmur rose from the crowd. Naomi wiped her tears and walked toward the elders. "Please, she is our daughter. She never hurt anyone. Why are you treating him like this?" But Loki just nodded and said, "This is for the safety for all of us." The decision of the village elders that night changed Ada's fate forever. The next day, with the sun just rising above tall trees of the forest, the villagers escorted Ada to the village borders, where the thick, dark forest began. Naomi followed them with the trembling legs, while her eyes were filled with tears. Kyobi was moving with heavy steps next to his wife. Ada, who was only 9 years old, could not fully understand why people treated her this way. She only knew that she no longer had a place among them. She tried to hide her tears as she walked ahead of the crowd. When they reached the edge of the forest, Mloki came forward and said coldly, "You must not come back here again. This forest is your home now." Naomi ran through the crowd to her daughter, hugged her and sobbed, "My daughter, take care. We love you." But Kyobi stood alone with a frozen face and did not say a war. Ada slowly left her mother's arms and moved towards the forest. After walking a few steps, she turned back for a moment and looked at her parents' faces. As she turned her back and walked into the forest, her mother's cries could be heard in the distance, but no one followed her. Months and years were spent in the forest, unable to return home. Ada learned how to survive alone in this dark and mysterious forest. At first, fear was all over him. At night, the sound of wild animals and trees bending in the wind kept him awake. But little by little, she learned how to feed inaudible plants, find drinking water, and build herself a simple shelter with tree branches and large leaves. Every day, Ada went to search in food. She had carefully learned which fruits were poisonous and which were good to eat. She gradually became familiar with his surroundings, and despite her long lines, she felt her strength and courage increasing. Ada, no longer a timid little girl, had become an independent and capable young woman. At night, under moonlight, she listened to her sounds of the forest and made a promise to herself that one day she would return to the village and prove to everyone that she is beyond any fear and doubt in their hearts of the people. After years of living in the forest, Ada was now 15 years old. She was no longer the small and timid girl who had been exiled from the village. Ada decided to return to Akimba. She knew that the villagers might not accept her. She walked slowly to the village. People who were at the first shocked to see her came out of their houses one by one. The looks changed from fear and doubt to admiration and respect. The people of the village could not believe that this girl was the same little Ada who had been sent to the forest one day. Even Luki, the chief of the elders, lowered his head and said nothing. With tears in her eyes, Naomi rushed through the crowd to her daughter and hugged her. Kyobi approached Ada with eyes full of pride and respect. He now knew that his daughter had not only survived, but had become a hero who could be. Ada walked slowly into the crowd with confident eyes. People looked at him with admiration. Ada no longer needed their approval. After Ada's return, the people of the village gradually realized that her presence is not only a danger, but a blessing for the village. Ada, now a brave and wise young woman, helped them overcome many challenges. With his intelligence and tact, she was able to find new ways to farm and use natural resources around the village. The people who had previously rejected her now accepted her as one of their leaders. Meluki, the former head of the elders, proudly handed over the leadership position to Ada and introduced her as the new guide of the village. Ada accepted this responsibility with tears in her eyes, but with a firm smile. She had now become a symbol of courage and hope, not only for her family, but for all the Akamba people. After a few years of Ada's leadership, Akamba village had flourished due to his present leadership. No one was gossiping about her past anymore. People saw her as a hero from rose the heart of the most difficult circumstances and became an inspirational figure. But one night in the middle of the harvest festival, an unexpected incident happened that changed everything. Ada, who was sitting as the leader in the center of the square, suddenly faced the arrival of a tall and strong stranger. The stranger, with a face full of violence and anger, shouted loudly, "How dare you come back here, you cursed creature!" His voice echoed across the sky like thunder. People stared at Ada and the stranger with terrified eyes. Suddenly, murmurs and whispers arose from the crowd. This girl, Ada, is the one who was rejected from our village one day. But you don't know that she wasn't sent here just because she was worried. She carries a curse that, if revealed, will destroy you all. People look at each other worriedly. Could this man be telling the truth? Who are you? Said Ada, trying to keep her composure. Why did you come here and say the things? The stranger smiled bitterly and continued, I am the one who sent her to his forest one day. I am your brother, Ada. The shocking sound of this sentence echoed in the crowd. Ada had never heard of having a brother. She tried to explain, but before she could say anything, his brother continued, you've always had a secret inside you, one that even you don't know about her. You think that you have always been alone, but the truth is that you are the only survivor who can either save or destroy the future of this village. Ada was very confused. No one had ever told him, but having a brother in her entire life. Ada slowly stepped back and stared at her mother with eyes filled with amazement. But why? Why didn't you ever say? The truth is not scary that you can believe. Kobe replied in a hoarse voice. Not only are you not an ordinary child, but you are also the heir to a curse that has been passed down to you from generation past. We hope that by taking you away, this curse would also be lifted from us, but it seems we were wrong. All this hardship was just because of a secret? Ada cried out in shock and anger. No, Ada, her brother said with a bitter smile. They only try to protect you and the village. There is something inside you that, if released, can destroy this village. People moved away from each other in fear. And what if I choose to never release it? Ada, now shaking with rage. Her brother shook his head and said, you can't. This is part of your destiny. You must accept this truth and face it, or let this village perish in the terror. Even now, she did not want to be a part of the curse that would destroy her people. She stepped firmly into the middle of the square and said loudly, if this curse is mine, I choose to face it. But this village, my family, my friends, should not be sacrificed. At this moment, a bright light emanated from Ada's heart. People panicked and jumped back. But instead of the village burning down or turning into ruins that came out of Ada's being engulfed the entire village, people's faces, which were full of horror at first, slowly softened. Anyone who was in Ada's light radius felt a strange sense of peace and security. Instead of releasing her curse, Ada had turned it into a force for healing and comfort. Looking at the scenes in shock, her brother sighed and said, so you are really different. You turned the curse into love. People approached Ada with tears in their eyes and respect. There was no more fear and doubt. Ada had proven that she is not only a threat, but beyond all prejudice, she is a hope and a new light for her village. After that night, a comeback became a new village. With her wisdom and love, Ada was able to not only undo the curse, but also teach a great lesson to the people who once rejected her. She became a new leader and hero in the hearts of people. The villagers joined together and started a new life based on love, empathy, and respect for each other. The Kamba village was now known as a symbol of hope. Every year, a big celebration was held on the occasion of Ada's return and the liberation of the village. People were reminded of what makes someone a hero, that no one should be ostracized because of their differences. Ada became known as a symbol of courage and love for future. I hope you enjoyed this story. If so, please like this video and comment on what you learned from it. And don't forget to subscribe to channel for more enchanting tales, just like this one. Thank you.